Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Pedro Soto. I am a proud participant in Hispanic Leaders Network, and I'm also a commander with the City of Waco Police Department. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to this month's Hispanic Leaders Network virtual monthly luncheon presentation. The Hispanic Leaders Network, or HLN, is a group of Hispanic leaders who are passionate and deeply vested in supporting current and future leaders. Our vision is to develop and empower current and future leaders to make a difference in the community. Our mission is to provide personal, cultural, and professional opportunities to inspire Hispanic leaders to serve and make a positive impact. The HLN operates as a committee of the Central Texas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today, the Hispanic Leaders Network welcomes City of Waco's new Chief of Police, Dr. Sheryl Victorian. I am excited to introduce Chief Victorian and will do so in just a few minutes. Before we begin, please mute your audio and use the Zoom chat feature to ask questions during the presentation. Also, there will be interactive activities where Chief Victorian will ask you questions. We ask that you respond to her questions using the chat feature. For the Facebook Live participants, you will need to be logged into Zoom to participate in the interactive portion of the presentation. You can go to the HLN website, www.hln-waco.org, or HLN Facebook page to find the Everbright Zoom registration link. Lastly, we want to get to know everyone who is online today in the Zoom chat feature. Please share your name, your business name or affiliation, title, and if you'd like, your contact information. Now, before we begin the program, since the program is occurring during the lunch hour, Jason Ramos, Director of Impact Waco at Antioch Community Church, will do the invocation. Jason?
Yeah, let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this time and this opportunity today to connect, Lord, and to hear what you're doing in our community, God, through the different people that are serving this great city, Lord. God, we welcome Chief Victorian today, God, and just the different watchmen in this community, the people who stand at the gates, God, and live out their calling and their giftings of what you've called them to serve this great city and do it together. And so, Jesus, we do welcome you in this time. We pray that you would have your way. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. And I hand it over.
Thank you, Jason. Again, welcome everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, City of Waco's new Chief of Police, Dr. Sheryl Victorian. Dr. Sheryl Victorian is a native Texan and a 28-year law enforcement professional. She was sworn in as the City of Waco's Chief of Police on March 15, 2021, after serving with the Houston Police Department for 28 years. Chief Victorian retired from the Houston Police Department as an Assistant Chief of the Patrol Region 2 Command, where she was responsible for the Clear Lake, Southeast, South Central, East Side, and Downtown Patrol Divisions, as well as the Vehicular Crimes Division. Her law enforcement experience includes assignments in the Major Offenders, Homicide, Special Victims, Internal Affairs, Training, and the South, Central, and Southeast Patrol Divisions. Chief Victorian has earned many awards and commendations for her service and dedication as a police professional. She was recognized as the 100 Club's Houston's Rookie of the Year in 1995 and earned a life-saving award, an award of excellence, citation, and many citizens and chief of police commendations. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University, a Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice from the University of Houston, downtown, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University. Chief Victorian is a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy, Session 267, a National Institute of Justice Law Enforcement Advanced Data and Science Scholar, and a current Fellow of American Leadership's Forum, Class 47. She is also a Discover Leadership Master Graduate of Class number 252 and has been selected to participate in the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institute for Police, Session 81 in July of this year. Chief Victorian has also participated in several other nationally recognized professional development and leadership programs. Chief Victorian is an adjunct professor at Southern New Hampshire University, where she teaches contemporary issues in criminal justice, ethics, and the graduate capstone course. In her spare time, yes, she has some spare time. Chief Victorian is a playwright and enjoys traveling, mentoring, time with her family. I give you Chief Dr. Sheryl Victorian.
Thank you so much, Commander Soto. I really, really appreciate the introduction very much for having me. Thank you, Commander Soto, for the introduction. I just wanted to say that I was absolutely honored when I received the email from Councilmember Soto to participate in this luncheon on today. I was very, very excited to have been asked. And I look forward to sharing with you guys today. It's really kind of informal, but I just want to share with you a little bit about me and then how I got to where I am and what my plans are for the city of Waco and working cooperatively with our community members. But first I need to give a couple of shout outs. I understand that we have some criminal justice students on the line, and everybody knows that our kids are our future. And one of my long-term plans is to make sure that we have diversity in the ranks and in our police department. So let me take some time to make sure that we identify these schools that are participating and the students that are on this line today. University High School with Mr. Menifee and the CTE Dean, Dr. Chris Holishek. And we want to thank their principal, Dr. Ricky Edison. We also have Waco High School, Mr. Michael Baker on the line, as well as their CTE Dean, Ms. Lisa Saxonian, as well as their principal. We'd like to thank Principal James Stewart. And from La Vega High School, we also have Mr. Richard Contreras, and we'd like to thank their principal, Ms. Sandra Gibson. So thank you guys for being on the line. I hope that you can walk away with something on today or be inspired as you, endeavor in careers in law enforcement. So I'm going to take a moment and share my screen with you guys. Again, I like a lot of pictures. So it's a lot of pictures here. You'll see me in my younger years here. Let's see. Share my screen. Yeah. Share. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen at this time. So again, thank you very much for having me. I took this moving forward together from one of our visions with the city of Waco, and I'm hoping that from this point forward that we're able to move together forward to make sure that we continue to have a thriving city here in the city of Waco. So I'm just going to start by telling you guys that I wasn't always the chief that I am now. I have grown. I heard this poem earlier this year, and it's called Live Your Creed. And when I heard the words of that poem, I realized I was like, that's the story of my life. And at the end, I'm going to share this poem with you guys, but I can't say that I was always on track to living my creed. But right now, I feel like I'm in the moment. And I love that poem. I love what it represents. And it pretty much just saying that our action speaks louder than our words, that people are watching the way we live, regardless of what's coming out of our mouth. If we're not actually doing what we're saying we're going to do, then it doesn't make a difference. So it means the world to people when we actually live our creed. And again, I'll share that poem with you as we wrap up. So let's start from the beginning. So back in the picture that says 4 years ago, I think we pulled this from Facebook. That was not 4 years ago, as you could probably obviously tell. I was early in my career. It was 1994. I was a rookie police officer, and I was assigned to Southeast Patrol. And while on patrol, I was able to work on the gang task force. But shortly after the gang task force, I had the opportunity to go to a prestigious division. And at the time, I didn't know. I was asked to come over there and do some undercover work. It's called Major Offenders Division. So in the Major Offenders Division, I worked there for 11 years. I had the opportunity to work with the group of people that you see in the picture on the below, and we did a lot of undercover work. That's all we did, and that was one of my dreams in becoming a police officer, was to do undercover work. So my partners, Margaret, Pete, Liz, myself, and our supervisor, Doug Osterberg, we did all kinds of deals. We did trademark counterfeiting deals with people selling fraudulent merchandise. We did tampering with government document deals, unlawful labeling deals. I think the most dangerous deal that I've ever done was selling and buying guns from gangbangers, but each and every day was different, and every day we had a good time. But my sole primary focus when I first became a police officer was putting the bad guys in jail. I didn't think about nothing else. I wanted to get the bad guys and put the bad guys in jail. As a rookie police officer, when I was still on the streets, I ran traffic. I, picked up people for warrants. I made arrests for violations, and I was actually awarded the Rookie of the Year award. So putting people in jail, that's what I wanted to do. Now my girlfriends and I, we did a lot of work, different work every day, but we also had a lot of fun. So at the time, I was living a dream. So I thought. So moving on to the next phase of our career, like I said, we didn't just do a lot of undercover work yesterday. Every day of the week, we were busy, extremely busy, making arrests, doing reports. And as we continue to work together throughout the years, our older partner, the one, she's usually always on my right, it's Margaret. Margaret went and did an undercover deal one day, and she came back and she just didn't have that, her personality had changed. And we were like, Margaret, what's wrong? And she was like, I think I'm beginning to feel some compassion for these people that were arrested. And so we sat down and we actually had some conversations about how she was feeling and why she was feeling that way. And it kind of planted the seed for where I am now. These are some amazing ladies, and we spent a lot of time together. They were here at my swearing in, but I can call them at a drop of a hat, and they'll be here. So Margaret actually planted that seed in me and my other partner, Liz Mahalko, and she was my partner for 11 years, in our head that maybe we could be doing things a little bit differently. So I started transitioning my thinking. I wasn't all the way there yet, but I started thinking about what we were doing and why we were doing it, and if there were other alternatives. So as I began to promote throughout the department, my thought process started to change. I began to grow, mature. I matured as a police officer. I matured as a supervisor. I had more responsibility, and then I was responsible for others. Then I realized that people were watching, even though I hadn't heard Live Your Creed yet, but people were watching and listening to everything that I did, everything that I say, and my life needed to be a reflection of how I wanted them to connect with the community. So I started going to professional development classes and becoming more engaged with our community. And so it wasn't until I promoted to sergeant that I started looking at things differently. And I started realizing, hey, we can't arrest our way out of everything. And so I started getting a different perspective, promoted to lieutenant, was in child sexual abuse, and went to the training academy. And as I went to the training academy, we started talking about things like procedural justice and de-escalation and proactive policing, but connecting with our communities. And I think that was very, very impactful for me, because that was right around the time that I was about to promote to commander. I can't remember which one of these pictures this is. When I promoted to commander with the Houston Police Department, I was going to have my own division, my own station, where I was responsible for over 120 something officers, with 5 lieutenants under me and 26 or so sergeants under me. And I wanted to start changing our perspective. And I knew a lot of young officers thought just like I did. They became police officers because they want to put the bad guys in jail. But was there another way? And so I started learning that, yes, there was another way. So I started realizing that prevention and intervention were just as important as apprehension. So we had it to come full circle. It was just as important for us to arrest the bad guys, get them off the street, but it was also important for us to do what we can to prevent crime and then to intervene where we can, when we're engaging with our community, engaging in our schools with our youth, that we can deter them to make different decisions or to make better decisions. So I started realizing that, yeah, there were alternatives. And so I started taking advantage of opportunities to get out in our community and connect with our community members and with our kids. And with that, you'll see further out in the presentation, we had to start getting some community stakeholders involved and some community stakeholders to help us with our mission of increasing that police legitimacy in our relationships with the community. So that's where we started. That became my focus. I started I came full circle and started looking at a holistic approach to being a law enforcement professional or police professional, or as you will see in our one of our next slides, a peace officer. So living the dream part 2. Yeah, I thought I was living the dream when I got to, live my dream of working as an undercover officer and having a lot of fun, doing something different every day. But then I started transitioning and I started growing. So the second part of my dream became engaging with my community, connecting with the kids, humanizing the badge, increasing the number of positive interactions that we had with our community, specifically with everything that's going on across the country and the mistrust that we have in our minority communities and in our communities, because I stand right there on that fine line as an African-American female, and then seeing the causes and the injustices that are continuing to happen in policing. And I feel like that I am in a unique position to be able to bridge that gap. So now I feel like I'm really living a dream. As a leader, I'm setting the example and engaging with our communities, engaging with our kids. We're holding events. We'd have events, and this was one of my favorites. We had Trunk or Treat, where we'd invite kids out to our patrol station. And what's better than to invite somebody into your own house to make them feel welcome, right? So we started holding events at our patrol stations, inviting the community to our patrol stations and encouraging them to come, especially during times such as Halloween, because we felt like it was a safe space. And we got our neighbors and our community stakeholders involved, and they came to our station, they decorated their cars, and participated and handed out candy. And we had toys there when it was raining this night, but we'll have mounted patrol out there. We'd have K9 out there. We'd have SWAT out there with all of the toys, just to make sure that we were being impressionable and humanizing the badge to our young people, letting them know that we cared about their safety, we cared about their future. And that was just really, really important. But it was also important to me as living part of this dream, as we all know, the George Floyd murder that occurred this past summer. It brought a lot of emotions to us across this country. And I'm not ashamed to tell you guys that the night of the event, on Memorial Day, I didn't even know what happened. That Tuesday, I just happened to be watching the news and I was flipping channels, and they were actually playing a portion of the video. And the whole time I was sitting there shaking my head. And before I know it, I was crying, because I knew that everything, I was like, surely this is not happening today. And I knew that one action, that 9 minutes now and 26 seconds, I think it is, was changed law enforcement forever. It was hurtful to me as a law enforcement officer to know that somebody took the same oath that I took and would commit such a horrible offense. And it hurt. And it hurt even more 2 days later, that Thursday night, when I was watching the protests across the country and I witnessed people burn down a police station. And that tugged at me too. I mean, it's like, I'm a police officer and people hate us so much. And those of us who are in this profession to do the right thing, we had to hurt. And I know most of my colleagues hurt. And so it was a very hurtful thing. And so I was having a lot of mixed emotions. And in Houston, we were having our first protest that Friday night after that Thursday. Did a whole lot of praying, met with a lot of officers, and got focused on what we needed to do to protect our city, but we still had issues. And then with the connection that George Floyd had to Houston, it was even more personal for me and for my colleagues. And if you see up in the left, that picture, I was actually assigned to the church where the wake was. And I was there for security and just presence and just to increase some positive engagements. I was assigned to go out there, and I was glad that I was, being a native Houstonian. And the chief shows up and he was like, Sheryl, did you go see the body? And I really had no intentions of going to see it because I knew that it would be an emotional moment. And then when I looked at him and said no, he was like, come on. And so he and I walked down here together. And I don't know, this picture is worth the 1,000 words, if you ask me. It really indicated how I was feeling, what was going through my head, what the chief was saying to me at the time. And not even 2 minutes after I walked away, okay, maybe it was about 5 minutes after I walked away, somebody texted me this picture. And I was like, wow, I don't like the reminder of that picture, but it was a very powerful picture. And it's a picture that I will always cherish. And just having that opportunity to be there and to be there with their family. Of course, as you can see, we had several visuals and things going on in the community. And I just thought it was so important that as the police, that we showed our support and that we were out there letting people know that good police, we don't like bad police either. And we want policing to be fair. We want policing to be equal. So being out in the community and engaging with our community members and still knowing that the majority of our community members loved us and supported us, it really, really did a lot for me personally and professionally. Having those difficult conversations, the picture on the far right at the top is myself and Chief Vera Bumpers at Houston Metro. We participated in a discussion at the University of Houston and talking about these tough topics related to police reform and our response to our community. So it's important that as law enforcement officers, let me take that back. I said that I'm transitioning to peace officers because that's what we are. When we respond to a scene, we're supposed to be creating peace. We need to come full circles. We need to know when it's time to be a guardian, and we need to know when it's appropriate, for us to be a warrior. And as a leader, that is something that I'm hoping to instill in everyone that works for me, that you got to have that balance, that we just can't be one or the other. So let's bring this down more locally. Let's talk about my vision for Waco. And I know that many of you may have heard this. If you've seen me on on a news channel, they were doing a story, or whether it was at my swearing in. My vision for the Waco Police Department is to be a model city for public safety and community police partnerships. And I am naive enough to believe that we can be that model city across this country for public safety, meaning that, there are decreases in crime. We're getting help from our community in decreasing crime, the reduction of fear of crime or being victimized. I believe that we can do that. And until the day I decide to retire, I'm gonna believe that we can make that happen. So what does this vision look like? A decrease in crime. I mentioned that. Increasing cooperation to solve crime. A lot of our community members do not want to participate in crime, in helping us solve crime. They may have information that we need, but if we can build that trust with our community members, I think that we can get more cooperation in addressing crime. And then not only that, there are a lot, and I had to learn this and I'm still learning, there are a lot of law enforcement agencies here in Central Texas. And we all need to get on the same page and have the same outcome. Our visions and missions may be different, very similar, but different, but our outcome should be the same, being a model city for public safety. And I'm not trying to, put us on a map nationally or whatever. I'm just saying that when people want to know how it's being done, they can come to the city of Waco. Also, reduce the fear of victimization. I just don't think that we should live in fear. And when crime is on the increase, people wonder, am I going to be next? Or and I don't know about you guys, but every time something happens in the news, you want information because you want to know how close to home was that, right? So I want there to be a reduction in the fear of victimization. And then working together on prevention and intervention strategies to reduce criminal behavior. There are so many resources in the city of Waco, and I've had the opportunity to meet with several organizations. And I am so glad that, we're working towards not working in silos and being able to work together and come up with plans to address things, whether it's mental health, which is one of our priorities here in the city of Waco, whether it's reducing crime or whatever our goals and objectives are, as long as we all have the same outcome and we use our individual magic, whatever it is that we're responsible for, to get to that outcome. I think that that would help us to, become this model city for public safety. And then partnering, mentoring, supporting, and guarding our youth. I think it's important to be in our schools, that our law enforcement officers are in our schools, our peace officers are in our schools. And one of the programs that I'm looking forward to bringing to the city of Waco is a program called TAPS, and it's Teen and Police Service. And it's a program that law enforcement officers go into the schools for 11 weeks, and there's a curriculum. And typically the students are, those kids are at risk. Maybe they've been arrested before, or maybe there are some things going on at home or internally that cause them to act out or be angry. Well, this 11-week program is a curriculum designed to address several different topics. And so we're going to bring TAPS to Waco next fall. Also partnering, mentor, I said that, community, helping us to increase police legitimacy. And that goes back to helping us to participate in our events whenever we're hosting events, to come out and support us and let others see your support of us. And then when you're having events, if there's something that you would like for us to do, or just have a table, or to be present so that we can increase those number of positive interactions, then that would be helpful as well. All right, so that was my vision. Let's talk about the priorities that I have for the city of Waco. Now, these are not all of the priorities, but these are the top 3. We talked about public safety, a consistent reduction in crime, and reduce the fear of victimization, and providing equitable services. It is important that we recognize that sometimes we think we're hitting the mark when we're not hitting the mark. So we need to make sure that we are providing equitable services. I don't care what community it's in. And I love this picture. When we get to the next slide, I'll show it to you. But the other 2 priorities: increase the number of positive interactions through relational policing. And I'll briefly talk about relational policing in a minute too. And then also create an internal culture of procedural justice as an example and expectation that it is modeled externally. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So when I'm talking about public safety and equitable service, again, cooperation. If you see something, say something. Putting out more public safety announcements when we have an issue or if something's going on in the city. Coming up with crime prevention strategies that's specific to any area that may be addressing crime. Because sometimes we're good for using stats in policing. We'll use stats and we'll say, okay, this is their problem. But unless we get involved with the community and have somebody from that community come out and say, well, yeah, this may look like it's high, but our real problem is the people loitering at the corner store. So we need to make our focus on what is important to the community, to show the community that we care about their concerns. Yeah, we need to address the stuff that's statistically happening as well, but we also need to make sure that we are getting input from our community. And then also communicating with our public. And I found this slide when I was making this PowerPoint presentation that gave the difference between equality and equity, right? So if you look at the people looking at the baseball game, they all have a box to stand on, right? To see the baseball game. But just because they all have a box doesn't mean that their view is the same. And then when you look at equity and you see that all of them are able to see the game now with a few adjustments, maybe somebody didn't need a box to see the game, then that is what equity is all about. We have the level playing field. We all get to see the same thing. All right, increasing positive interactions through relational policing. I see that I'm at 38 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna move forward quickly. Okay, increasing the positive interactions through relational policing. So relational policing, Chief Acevedo, who is now in Miami, who's the chief that promoted me to assistant chief when I was in Houston, came to Houston with this idea of relational policing, and I absolutely loved it. And the tenets of relational policing spell out the word TREEAT with 2 E's, and that's transparency, respect, engagement, building emotional capital, accountability, and all of that builds trust. And so I think that it's really, really important that we adopt this model of policing as opposed to talking about community policing, which usually involves working cooperatively with the community to address crime issues. Let's talk about building genuine relationships in our community. So you'll hear me talk about, if you see me anywhere else, or if you catch me somewhere and want to talk more about relational policing, I'll be absolutely honored to talk to you more about relational policing. But it involves being transparent, being respectful, engaging with our communities, building that emotional capital. I spelled capital wrong. Thank you. I'll correct that. And accountability, holding our officers accountable and holding ourselves accountable when we mess up, to build that trust. So this is another image of a relational policing you guys may see out and about somewhere. The Waco Police Department is committed to earning trust. We're earning trust through relational policing. Relational policing is a philosophy focusing on principles of creating genuine cooperative relationships between the police and the citizens of Waco. Waco PD is committed to making every contact count by being transparent, respectful, engaging, building emotional capital, and being accountable to earn the trust of the citizens we serve. So that's going to be one of our, that's our little branded model of relational policing. So I have an opinion poll for you right quick, and I'd like to know your thoughts. And if you could just respond in the chat, please. So we didn't talk about the tenets of relational policing individually. I see that I'm running out of time, but we didn't talk about them individually. But from what you know about these different tenets, being transparent, being respectful, engaging with the community and building emotional capital and accountability, which tenet do you think is more important? Which is more important to you in establishing trust? Would it be transparency, respect, engagement, and building emotional capital, accountability, or you think all of them are important? Now I have to see how I can look at my chat so that I can see. Hold on, okay. All right, I don't see my chat. But I will go and look at those chats because I'm interested in knowing what how our community feels. What do you think is more important? So
Chief, the majority of the responses have been E, all of the above. There are a few D's and B's, but the majority are responding E.
all right, exceptional. And that's really good to know. And I'll tell you something, and this is something that our leadership team is going to talk about too. These tenets are not just good for relational policing, but relational leadership as well. So if you want to adopt it, your organization, you are very welcome to. Chief Acevedo presented it to us in Houston, and I always give him credit for it. He's like, no, that's ours. And I talked him into branding this in Houston. And that was just before I left. So I was like, oh, no, we're branding this in Waco because we're bringing this to Waco. But this is important in leadership as well. In order to gain the trust and respect of our troops, we need to abide by all of these tenets as well. So let's talk about creating an internal culture of procedural justice as an example and expectation of our officers to model the behavior externally. So some of you may have heard the term being procedurally just. And when we talk about it, when it was introduced to law enforcement, it was introduced on how we should make sure we are treating our citizens, right? They should be fair. Whatever process it is, there should be fairness in the process. There should be transparency in our actions. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Then you should have an opportunity as a citizen to have voice. And then the decision needs to be impartial. What I like to use as an example is a traffic ticket. Some of us know that sometimes when we get stopped on traffic, yeah, we may have ran a stop sign. Yeah, we may have ran that light, right? Well, if you're going through the process, an officer pulls you over and he is fair, you may not like the outcome, which may result in a ticket, but if he's fair, if he tells you exactly what he's going to do, if he allows you an opportunity to say, yeah, you know what, I was distracted, I had a lot on my mind, I ran a stop sign, to just give you an opportunity for voice and then he makes a decision that he would make to everybody if they were in that situation, then you felt like that decision was fair, at least the process was fair. So that's procedural justice. I think it's important as a law enforcement, a peace officer, a police professional, that internally that I'm practicing the same thing. I feel like if internally I'm fair with all of my processes, whether it's an internal affairs division, whether it's a promotional process, whatever the process is, if I'm fair in the process, then officers will be more receptive. They may not like the outcome, but if the process is fair, if I tell you everything that we're going to do, if I allow you an opportunity to provide me some feedback and give me some voice, and then whatever decision that I make, if I apply it fairly across the board, then people are more willing to accept the process. And I think it's important that I practice in procedural justice internally, because how I treat my leaders, how I treat my officers is the same way that I feel like our officers will go out and treat our community. So that's why, I'm not saying that procedural justice should be prioritized for officers as opposed to our citizens. I'm just saying that the way that I treat them is the way that I feel like they will treat you. So I need to make sure that my process justice internally are the same way that I'm expecting them to administer procedural justice in the community. One more opinion poll. And this one right here, just to be honest, this is something I don't know about Waco yet. I did make some phone calls before I got here to see how citizens felt about the city of Waco, but this is your opportunity to tell me. From your knowledge of the Waco Police Department, Waco police officers have a reputation for being procedurally just, meaning that we're fair, transparent, there are opportunities for you to have voice, and we make decisions impartially. And Ms. Elaine, if you could let me know. Do we do it during every contact that you've ever had with us? Do we do it during most contacts? And it can be something that you heard. Doing some of our contacts, or we don't do it at all?
So far, the majority are saying B during most contacts. 1A, 1C, majority B.
All right, well, good. That's good to know. During most contacts is not where we want to be. That's not the standard of the expectation for me, but it's good to know where we are. And here's another thing, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too. Here's another thing. We don't know it's happening unless you let me know it's happening. So I am fine with people emailing me about good experiences and bad experiences, but I really would rather get those phone calls and those emails about officers who are doing an exceptional job. All right, moving forward. So how can you help and how can you support? These are just photos of, we have back to school giveaways. We have those tough community meetings where we need to discuss how we can move forward, criminal justice reform. We have Christmas parties, but that's not the only way you can help. Those are just the really, really fun things. But you can participate in the programs that the Waco Police Departments have. Our Citizens Police Academy. I don't know if anybody has gone through the Citizens Police Academy, but we just graduated a class. Participate in the Citizen Police Academy. You learn a lot about the police department when you go through the Citizens Police Academy. Here in Waco, it's a 12-week program. I love that. You spend a couple of hours, one time a week, learning about our different divisions, meeting our officers, taking a few field trips, and just learning about the policies and procedures of the police department and why we make some of the decisions that we do. When COVID is like out of the way, and I know everybody is waiting for that, come participate in the ride along. Come and ride one shift with our officers and see what happens on these calls and the number of calls that are dropping, how much time they're spending on calls, how they interact with the public, how they interact with one another. Come and do a ride along, learn more about us. Have your kids to participate in our Explorers program. And my students that are out there, if you are not an Explorer, email me. I'll hook you up with Miss Sophie Martinez. She does an excellent job with our Explorers. We have top notch, and they have won many awards. I walked in their office before I was offered this job and saw those trophies, and they're doing a phenomenal job in the state of Texas and around this country representing the Waco Police Department. Please join us. Right now, we have applications out for our Junior Police Academy, which is a 2-week program for our youth in the summertime that exposes them more to law enforcement as well. And then positive interaction program meetings. This is not something that we do yet. It's something that I'm hoping to bring to the city, that we will bring to the city of Waco, where we are inviting the citizens of Waco to come into, whether it's our tower or whether we find a place in the community, to sit down and meet and show and tell you something about our department. Maybe during hurricane season, we bring someone in and talk about hurricane preparedness. But the overall mission is to have a positive interaction with our community. So it's called the Positive Interaction Program. And also introduce you to different aspects of the police department. And we can do that once a month, we can do it every other month, we can do it once a quarter, but just an opportunity for us to meet with our citizens. And recruiting, I will recruit everywhere I am. If you work in a restaurant, if you have a restaurant, if one of your waiters are treating me with respect, they have a great attitude, do not be surprised if I say, hey, have you ever thought about policing? So, but I just actually help us out, help us recruit. You hear somebody say that they're interested in law enforcement, connect them with me, connect them with Commander Soto or someone with our police department so that we can, answer any questions that they may have. We need diversity in policing. We need diversity in our ranks. And the only way we can get diversity in our ranks is if we get more recruits that are diverse. So help us out with recruiting. You can volunteer whenever we have any special events. And again, I mentioned this a little earlier, you can notify us when we're not doing good, not meeting the standard, but you can also tell us what we're doing good. Catch us when we're doing stuff right and let us know. This is just another slide of our communities participating with us in different events. Always have a great time, and you're gonna always, when I see this, I was really, really good about posting on Twitter. When we are getting support from our community, I like the community to know, I like the citizens to know, because if we do not share this message of the things that we're doing well, nobody will share these messages. So I'm not afraid to hop in front of the camera, take pictures with our stakeholders and just praise them for what they do. So you can always partner with us. And so living this creed, this is what the reward is for me. The reward for me is being able to see young ladies who say, whose moms reach out and say, hey, my daughter wanted to be the first police chief in the city of Waco, but now she's just interested in working for you. Now, this is young lady, she's 8. I don't know if I'll be around by the time she's ready to be a police officer, but just to be able to surprise her on her birthday and bring the troops out. And this team that we put together, that what Sophie Martinez put together, and they just came up with some amazing things, and we were able to honor this little girl on her 8th birthday. We pretty much adopted her. And so this is the reward for me. And then I had an opportunity to visit Dean Holland a couple of weeks ago, and they gifted me with these beautiful notes and a little dragon, a Dean Holland dragon. A young man said that him and his mom picked a flower for me that morning, and that just made my day. So the reward for me is making a difference, being able to influence others, supporting where I can, and making sure that I'm being encouraging. So I'm gonna leave you guys, it's 52 minutes and 55 seconds. I don't wanna take up too much of your time. I wanna leave you guys with this poem about living your creed. And I hope it's encouraging to you and inspirational to you. And many of you may be living your creed and didn't realize you were living it. So take it to heart. But it's called Live Your Creed, and it's by Langston Hughes. And it says, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one walk with me than just to show the way. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. And the very best of teachers are the ones who live their creed. For to see good put into action is what everybody needs. I can soon learn to do it if you just let me see it done. I can watch your hand in motion, but your tongue too fast may run. And the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. For I may misunderstand you in the fine advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding in how you act and how you live. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll turn it back over to you, Elaine. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions with the time that I have left, if I have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Victorian, for that inspirational presentation. And when we met, I told you this would be my 50th year in Waco, as I was born in Waco. And I have caught myself really just taking a deep breath in this moment. The historic, you know, your placement in this position, and exactly what it means. And it is so important to so many people. So again, thank you for explaining exactly what your mission and your desire is for our community. And we just so appreciate you. So as Commander Soto mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, the vision of the Hispanic Leaders Network is to develop and empower current and future leaders to make a difference in our community. One of HLN's goals is to equip Hispanic leaders and provide opportunities for them to play an active role in shaping the greater Waco community by serving on various boards and committees. We often receive requests for names of potential committee and board members, and it's important and vital that boards and committees represent the diversity and the demographics of our city. A very short survey was emailed to you yesterday, and it is also being provided to you in the chat. There are literally 3 questions in addition to standard contact information. The purpose of this survey is to learn more about your areas of interest and your desires to serve on a board or committee in the community. We will use this database as a resource when either the HLN or the Hispanic Chamber receives inquiries for potential committee or board members from organizations or entities throughout our community. Your participation is greatly needed and appreciated. Now we'll hand it off to Elaine for an update on our HLN SWATs team meeting.
But on April the 17th, we had members from the HLN Advisory Committee joined in, as well as the Syntax Hispanic Chamber joined in as well. And we participated in an activity using the framework of SWOTs. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and strategies. And from this meeting, we formed and merged priorities that we felt like we needed to definitely address. Bridget, if you don't mind, if you are looking at that list, can I have you go through that list, please?
Yes. So the first priority was language justice. So offering language access to Spanish-speaking members of our organization. Number 2 was governance and structure. So for the last 2 years, the HLN has operated as a committee under the umbrella of the Syntax Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We're looking to continue this arrangement under a committee charter format. The HLN and the Hispanic Chamber remain united in their commitment to the vision and mission of HLN. Number 3 is cultural and community engagement. So embracing our culture and building community trust. Number 4, leadership development through mentorship and training. And then number 5, financial health and stability for the Hispanic Leaders Network.
Great, thank you. So we will be continuing to work on these strategies. We will be having an HLN Advisory Committee meeting next Thursday. Our priorities will continue to be serving our community, making sure that we are offering professional and leadership development opportunities, making sure that we are assessing the gaps within our community so that the committees and the boards within our city represent our city. And also, we are going to make sure that we continue to offer you opportunities to serve. So that's why it's very important that you complete the survey. You can go to our website or you probably received an email. Just take a few seconds. If you are not serving on a committee or a board and you have areas of special interest and you would like to do that, we invite you to do that because we want to make sure that boards and committees throughout our city represent our city fairly and equitably. Now, mark your calendars, if you will. Our next HLN meeting will be held on June the 4th, Friday, June the 4th. Our special guest speaker will be Dr. Crystal Diaz-Espinosa. She is going to provide a professional development activity, which is going to be great for our future and our current leaders in our community. Chief Victorian, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very inspiring. You touched many areas that we as a community are very interested in, and we support you 100%. We are glad that you are in this role. As the first female who broke that glass ceiling and the first Black as well in that role as Chief of Police, we are very excited to have you, and your presentation was right on point. I will never forget the Creed poem. I want a copy of that as well. And we did have a participant that wanted to know what is the best email address to contact you or to reach you.
All right, I will put it in the chat.
Okay, great.
And feel free to email me. WacoTX.gov. And feel free to email me. If I start getting 100 emails, be patient. I will get back into every one of them. But yeah, I'd love the opportunity. I've had nothing but meetings since I've been here. So I'd love an opportunity to take 15, 20 minutes if somebody wants to come by and meet or wants to meet me. I'd love it. So thank you very much for having me today.
Hey, Chief, I know we didn't get to the Q&A portion, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to do this. But with our students attending, especially the high number of female students that we have in attendance, would you mind just touching a little bit on the 30 by 30 initiative that Waco just joined in with the other cities across the country, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Council Member, for bringing that up. So Waco has just decided to participate in a program that we call 30 by 30, offered by the Policing Project in New York City. These are ladies that I worked with as a lead scholar, and thank God for the connection. So what the goal is to have 30% representation of females in policing as peace officers by 2030. Right now, we only represent 12% of police officers across this country. So the goal is by 2030 to have 30% representation. Waco is a little ahead of the game. We are at 15%. So we only got another 15% to go. We're ahead of the game. But so we're going to be actively looking for females to join law enforcement. We bring a different perspective to this field, and I would love to see more women. So we'll be recording you. Thank you.
And we do have a few more minutes, so I will open the floor. If anyone has any questions for Chief Victorian, feel free to either put it in the chat. I'll be watching the chat, or you can just unmute and ask your questions. I know I sent a list of questions from our committee to the chief, and she addressed every one of them in her presentation. One was the goal for her and the police department to continue to recruit a diverse group of leaders and police officers. And the fact that you are making connections and involving the school district, and I know the colleges, and you said it, you will be recruiting, you are going to be out there looking, and we appreciate that because we have some wonderful leaders in our community, and we want them to fulfill their dreams, their career goals as well. And your presentation was very inspirational. So does anyone have any questions? We have a thank you for inviting University High School to today's event. We greatly appreciate the consideration. Thank you, Mr. McPheeney. I can't say his name, sorry.
I'm sorry, and I sent my email as a direct message to someone, but I just sent it out to everyone, I think. Okay. So hopefully everyone got it.
So Sheryl, SHERYLV at wacotx.gov.
And thank you, Mr. Fred. I sent it to him by himself.
All right. Well, I do not see any other questions. So again, Chief, thank you again. Everyone, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We will see you on June the 4th.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.